The December snow was falling harder than the weather forecast had predicted when I pulled into the driveway. Through the frosted windshield of my old Ford, I could see the warm glow spilling from every window of the house, hear the faint sound of holiday music drifting through the winter air. Everything looked perfect from the outside, exactly the kind of Norman Rockwell scene you'd expect to find on Christmas Eve. But something was wrong with this picture. Something that made my blood run cold the moment I spotted him. My grandson Marcus sat hunched on the front steps, wearing nothing but a thin sweater and dark jeans. No coat, no gloves, no hat. Just a 19-year-old kid shivering in weather that hadn't climbed above 20 degrees all day. I've seen a lot in my 71 years on this earth. Worked 35 years in the steel mills, raised 3 children mostly on my own after Eleanor passed, survived more family drama than any man should have to endure. But nothing, and I mean nothing, had prepared me for the rage that surged through me in that moment. Before we go any further, I want you to pause and think about this. Where are you listening from right now? Are you somewhere warm and safe? Because what I'm about to tell you will change how you think about family forever. The engine ticked as it cooled while I sat there trying to process what I was seeing. Inside that house, I could hear laughter. Actual laughter. The kind of joyful sounds families make when they're celebrating together, sharing stories, passing around second helpings of dinner. Meanwhile, the most important person in my world was sitting outside like unwanted furniture, his lips already turning blue from the cold. I threw open my door and ran across the icy driveway, my boots slipping on the frozen ground. "Marcus," I called out, my voice echoing in the crisp air. "Son, what in God's name are you doing out here?" He looked up at me with eyes that held more pain than any teenager should ever carry. His whole body was trembling, not just from the cold, but from something deeper. Something that had been building for a long time, Grandpa Joe. His voice came out cracked and weak. "I didn't know you were coming." I was already pulling off my heavy winter jacket, wrapping it around his shoulders like armor against the world. The boy was ice cold to the touch, his skin pale and clammy. "How long have you been sitting out here?" "Since ... He pulled my coat tighter, trying to stop the violent shaking. "Since about noon." I checked my watch. 4:30 in the afternoon. 4.5 hours in weather that could kill someone. "What do you mean since noon?" "This is your house, Marcus. Why aren't you inside with your family?" That's when he said the words that changed everything. Words that cut through my chest like a knife and made me understand that the grandson I thought I knew had been living in hell while I was completely oblivious. "I'm not allowed inside," he whispered, glancing nervously at the front door. "Derek said I can't come in until I learn my lesson." Derek, my daughter Sarah's husband of 4 years. The man who'd swept into our family with his steady job and perfect smile, promising to give Sarah and Marcus the stability they deserved after her first marriage fell apart. The same man who was apparently capable of locking a kid outside to freeze while he enjoyed Christmas dinner. What lesson? I kept my voice calm, but inside I was already planning exactly what I was going to say to Derek when I got my hands on him. "I accidentally dropped the gravy boat this morning." It shattered all over the kitchen floor. Marcus's voice got smaller with each word. "Derek said I was careless and disrespectful, that I ruined Christmas for everyone. He told me to sit out here and think about what I'd done. A gravy boat." They'd locked him outside to freeze over a broken gravy boat. I looked at the house again, really looked at it this time. The decorations, the warm lights, the sounds of celebration. Through the dining room window, I could see figures moving around a table laden with food. A perfect holiday gathering, except they'd thrown out the most innocent person among them like he was garbage. Has this happened before? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer would destroy me. Marcus nodded miserably. "Derek says I need to learn discipline. That my mom was too easy on me growing up." He pulled my jacket closer around his shoulders. "Last month he made me sleep in the garage, because I forgot to take out the trash. And in October, he locked me in the basement for 2 days because I accidentally broke his coffee mug. Each word hit me like a physical blow. My grandson, this smart, gentle kid who'd never hurt anyone in his life, had been systematically tortured by the man who was supposed to protect him. And where was Sarah in all this? My own daughter, who I'd raised to stand up for herself and others. What does your mother say about this? The defeat in his voice nearly broke my heart. She says Derek's just trying to make me a better person. That I need to stop being so sensitive and learn to follow rules. I stood there in the falling snow, holding my frozen grandson, and felt something hard and cold settle in my chest. This wasn't discipline. This was abuse, pure and simple. And it was going to stop today. Marcus, I said, guiding him toward my truck, we're going to get you warmed up, and then we're going to have a conversation with Derek and your mother. But as we walked toward my vehicle, Marcus grabbed my arm with hands that were shaking from more than just cold. Please don't make a scene, Grandpa. If you embarrass Derek in front of the guests, he'll just make it worse for me later. He always does. That's when I realized this wasn't the first time someone had stood up to Derek. It's just that every time someone tried, Marcus paid the price afterward. This boy had learned to protect the people who loved him by staying silent about his own suffering. I helped him into the passenger seat and cranked the heat to maximum, then grabbed an emergency blanket from my toolkit and wrapped it around him. His teeth were chattering so hard he could barely speak. Tell me everything, I said, rubbing his hands between mine to get the circulation going. Start from the beginning. When did this start? For the next 20 minutes, Marcus told me a story that made my blood boil. It had begun small. Derek criticizing the way Marcus loaded the dishwasher, the way he made his bed, the way he breathed too loudly during dinner. Then it escalated. Restrictions on when he could eat, when he could shower, when he could speak at the dinner table. Punishments that grew more creative and more cruel with each perceived infraction. He controls everything, Marcus said, his voice hollow with exhaustion. What I wear, what I eat, when I can use my phone. Mom says he's just trying to teach me responsibility, but Grandpa, I don't think I can take much more of this. I looked at my grandson, really looked at him, and saw details I'd missed before. The careful way he held himself, like someone who'd learned that taking up too much space could be dangerous. The faint bruises around his wrists. The way he flinched whenever a car door slammed too loudly. How long has your mother known about this? Since the beginning. But Derek told her that if she interfered with his parenting, he'd leave and take the house with him. She can't afford to live on her own with just her job at the insurance office. So my daughter had chosen financial security over her son's safety. The daughter I'd raised to be strong and independent had let fear turn her into a collaborator. In her own child's abuse, I'd heard enough. Marcus, I want you to stay in this truck where it's warm. I'm going to go have a conversation with Derek. Grandpa, please don't. You don't understand how he gets when someone challenges him. But I was already out of the truck, walking through the snow toward the front door. 40 years of construction work had left me with more strength than most men half my age. And right now I needed every ounce of that strength to keep from doing something I'd regret. I didn't bother knocking. The front door was unlocked, and I walked straight into the warmth and light of their perfect holiday celebration. The scene that greeted me was exactly what I'd expected and somehow worse than I'd imagined. Derek sat at the head of a dining table that looked like something from a magazine spread. White tablecloth, gleaming silverware, crystal glasses reflecting the light from an elaborate chandelier. Sarah was beside him in a red dress I'd never seen before, her hair styled perfectly. A younger girl, Derek's daughter from his first marriage, sat across from them, playing with her food. They were all warm, comfortable fed. The turkey looked golden and beautiful. Everything was pristine and peaceful, exactly what a family Christmas should look like. Everything except for the fact that they'd locked a child outside to freeze. Well, "Well," Derek said, not even looking up from carving the ham. "Look who decided to crash our family dinner." I stepped fully into the room, snow still clinging to my boots, and felt the temperature drop as every eye turned toward me. "Where's Marcus?" "Marcus is learning a valuable lesson about responsibility," Derek replied, his voice calm and controlled. "Something his mother should have taught him years ago." That's when Sarah finally spoke up, her voice shaky and uncertain. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "We weren't expecting you until tomorrow. I came to spend Christmas with my family." "All of my family." I looked directly at Derek, including my grandson, who I found sitting outside in 20-degree weather because he broke a gravy boat. Derek finally looked up from his carving, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. He was trying to decide whether he could intimidate me into backing down. This is my house, and that boy needed to learn that actions have consequences. I won't have carelessness and disrespect at my dinner table. Carelessness? I stepped closer to the table, close enough to see the wine stain on Derek's lips, the grease on his plate. "You nearly froze a kid to death over an accident." "He's not a kid. He's 19 years old, and it's time he learned to act like an adult." Derek's voice took on that patronizing tone that certain men use when they think they're being reasonable. "I'm trying to teach him discipline," something his mother clearly failed to do. Sarah flinched at that comment, but didn't say anything. Just sat there in her pretty red dress, looking between us like she was watching a tennis match instead of a fight for her son's life. "Discipline," I repeated. "Is that what you call locking someone in a basement for 2 days? Making them sleep in an unheated garage? Leaving them outside in weather that could kill them?" Derek's mask slipped for just a moment, and I could see the anger underneath his controlled exterior. "Who told you that?" "Marcus told me. Because unlike you, I actually listen when that boy talks." The younger girl had stopped playing with her food and was now crying quietly, confused and frightened by the shouting. Sarah reached over to comfort her, but her eyes never left my face. "This is a private family matter," Derek said, standing up from his chair. He was bigger than I remembered, probably outweighed me by 50 pounds, but I'd been in my share of fights when I was younger. Size didn't always matter when you were angry enough. Private family matter? I could feel my voice rising. "That's my grandson you've been torturing." "Torturing?" Derek actually laughed. "I've been trying to turn that spoiled brat into a functioning adult. Something his real father never bothered to do." That's when I saw red. Marcus's real father had died in a car accident when the boy was 12. Derek knew that. He was using a dead man to justify his cruelty. "You have 30 seconds to apologize to my grandson," I said, my voice deadly quiet. 30 seconds to show some basic human decency. Derek's laugh was even colder this time. "I don't owe that boy anything. If he doesn't like my rules, he can find somewhere else to live." "You're right about that," I said, pulling out my cell phone. "He is going somewhere else to live." The movement was deliberate, slow enough for everyone in the room to understand exactly what I was considering. Derek's confident expression cracked when he saw the phone. "Either you apologize to my grandson right now," I continued, "or I call Child Protective Services and report this abuse." "You wouldn't dare." But I was already dialing. "Try me. I've got plenty to tell them about leaving a 19-year-old outside in freezing weather for 4 hours. That's when Sarah finally found her voice. "Dad, please. Don't destroy our family over this." "I'm not destroying anything," I said, keeping my eyes locked on Derek. "He did that when he decided to abuse my grandson." "Abuse?" Derek's voice rose with indignation. "I was teaching him responsibility. By nearly giving him hypothermia?" The room fell silent, except for the sound of the younger girl crying and the cheerful Christmas music still playing softly in the background. The irony would have been funny if I weren't so furious I could barely see straight. Then Marcus appeared in the doorway, still wrapped in my jacket and the emergency blanket. He looked small and fragile standing there, but his voice was stronger than I'd heard it all day. "I want to leave with my grandfather." Derek turned toward him with fury in his eyes. "You ungrateful little..." "Don't." I stepped between them. "Don't you dare say another word to him." The police arrived 20 minutes later. Apparently one of the neighbors had heard the shouting and called them. I was grateful for that neighbor, because having official witnesses made everything that came next much easier. The officers listened to our statements with the professional detachment of people who'd seen too many family disputes. But when Marcus showed them the bruises on his wrists and told them about sleeping in the garage and being locked in the basement, their expressions changed. When Sarah finally admitted that yes, Derek had locked Marcus outside for 4 hours in freezing weather, the handcuffs came out. As they led Derek away, he turned back to Sarah with pure venom in his eyes. "You'll regret this betrayal. You'll lose everything. The house, the money, everything. You'll be nothing without me. I'd rather be nothing than watch you hurt my son," Sarah said. And for the first time in years, she sounded like the strong woman who'd raised Marcus on her own. That night, Marcus and Sarah both came home with me to my small house across town. It wasn't much, a modest ranch with worn furniture and carpet that had seen better days, but it was warm and safe, and paid for. 6 months later, we're still here. Sarah got a better job at a law firm downtown, and Marcus is thriving at the community college. He made the dean's list last semester and is planning to transfer to the state university in the fall to study social work. "I want to help other kids who are going through what I went through," he told me one evening as we sat on the back porch watching the sunset. Derek was convicted of child endangerment and sentenced to 2 years of probation and mandatory counseling. The divorce went through without much drama, turns out. Derek wasn't quite as financially stable as he pretended to be, but the real change happened in our family. Sarah learned to stand up for herself and her son. Marcus learned that he deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. And I learned that sometimes being a grandfather means more than just giving advice and birthday presents. Sometimes it means kicking down doors and demanding justice. This Christmas we'll be having dinner at my house. Just the 3 of us, plus maybe Marcus's girlfriend from college and Sarah's new friend from work. It won't be fancy or magazine perfect. We'll probably eat off mismatched plates and drink wine from coffee mugs. But everyone who sits at our table will be there because they're wanted, because they're loved, because they're family in the truest sense of the word. I think about that snowy December evening often. What if I hadn't decided to drive over early? What if I'd called first instead of just showing up? What if I'd listened to Marcus when he begged me not to make a scene? The truth is, we can't always predict when life will demand that we choose between keeping the peace and doing what's right. But when that moment comes, I hope you'll remember Marcus sitting on those frozen steps, and I hope you'll choose courage over comfort. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you listening from today? Have you ever had to stand up to someone who was hurting a person you loved? What did this story teach you about the real meaning of family? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might just give someone else the courage they need to act when it matters most.